coordinator in charge of the asylum, and I'm going to be the host. So I hope you have fun. My guests today are the normal host, Mr. P, and the legend that is Dave Feds, or Mr. Squad Game, as we're going to call him from now on. Right, let's get right to it. So, interesting game yesterday. Some see it as a comfortable win. Many things to talk about, many points. Who are the runners and riders? Which players have added themselves in? Which have got work to do? Let's begin. So, 5 changes. In come Lumley, Dickey, Sykes, Morrison, and Yeboah. Wait, I've gone too far. Let's go back a little bit. Mr. P, what were your impressions at full time?
Oh, you don't have to stick to the format, Dave.
No. I will.
It could do with a change. What are my thoughts at full time? Well, let's try and get out of this hot cauldron that was Ashton Gate. Not so much because of the football, because it was really baking in there last night, and it was a good crowd, I thought, as well. Just over 10,000 against second division League Two opposition, with another game to come on Saturday. So, but my thoughts were, it was a stroll in the park, and that's the best. We were never threatened at all, so it was expected. And over the years, we've seen City do the unexpected by losing against lower level opposition. But it was convincing. MK Dons are a good side. I was sat next to Neil Sutton through the game, and they're favourites to go up from League Two, and they weren't a bad test. Yeah, I would say. So, I was naturally happy, looking forward to the draw for the second round, 7:20-ish tonight.
Febs, how are you feeling after yesterday? What were your thoughts walking out of the stadium?
Yeah, so a bit like Dave. It was bloody hot in there. The bit we sit in is typically in the Lansdowne kind of wings is normally in the shade. So in the winter it's cold. It never gets any sun into it. But last night it was still hot, so yeah, it was good to get out there and into the car and get some breeze going. But I just thought it was a comfy performance with a lot of boxes ticked for Struber and for a number of players as well, which was kind of perfect really. So yeah, all pretty happy this morning.
Okay, so let's get to those boxes ticked and boxes that perhaps aren't so ticked. Let's start with the starting lineup. In come Lumley, Dickey, Sykes, Morrison, and Yeboah. Any surprises there for you? Too many changes? Not enough changes? Who was left out that surprised you? Fetch, you first.
I think I expected some changes. Didn't know how many. I think there's a couple of things that I thought he might do differently, but it was good to see Lumley get his debut. So that's good. Kind of box tick there. Dickey was obviously going to come back in to get some minutes after his suspension. So another box tick there. And then I think it was about who do you want to rest and who do you not? Who do you want to kind of give some minutes to? And I think he blended it pretty well with getting some minutes for Mark Sykes from the start. He gave full debuts to Morrison and Yeboah, so kind of that was nice to see as well. Their first starts, and yeah, I think it was a good mix. It was good to see people like maybe Rob Atkinson getting a rest because he had a little heel niggle before the Sheffield United game, and also we all worry about Ross McCrory and being overloaded as well. So I think he got that rest in. So between the players he brought in and the players he didn't play, then I think he did pretty well. I think he wasn't ever going to make play the kids, for example. So any claims for people like some of the young lads who played in pre-season, like Ruben Shepherd and Louis Derrick, they were never going to play. And then we saw the under-21 team announced at kind of midday, and that kind of ruled out people like Jamie Knight-Labelle and Adam Murphy playing as well. So I think he ticked a lot of boxes off yesterday. And that was good, and that was the main thing. And obviously winning the game was the most important thing. We're through to the next round, and that'll give some opportunities for him to do similar in the next game as well.
Mr. P, how are you feeling if you're Bell and Armstrong today? The fact that you didn't start yesterday.
Well, if I'm Sinclair Armstrong, who didn't start, neither did Reese for that matter, but if I'm Sinclair Armstrong, I'm thinking I came on for the last 20 minutes or 25 minutes, whatever it was, and I thought, I'm not a great fan of his, but I thought he put in a shift. Some people thought I was being a bit overly generous. Yeah. Sam Bell, don't know what you're doing with the Alice hairband, Sam. Grealish with that. Maybe, it's curtains for Maulu because he didn't even make the squad. In terms of playing players or resting players, maybe could have given Knight a rest, but then with Williams still not fit, I do think Knight and Randle are, to use a Lee Johnson phrase, two busy bees in midfield. So if you took Knight out from the start, who would you put alongside him? And although he did come on late on Bird, I don't see him having that action style to be one of the busy two in midfield. Yeah. Lumley coming in goal. Yeah, that was fine. I didn't see anything. We'll talk about individual performances and staking a claim. But based on what I saw of Lumley yesterday, just his overall style, I can see why Struber did go out and maybe asked if he could have that better goalkeeper that Vitek clearly is, because he didn't fill me with confidence.
Okay, so we've started a lineup, 5 new faces in, and yet it was a pretty rapid start. Febs, talk me through that first 5 minutes, what you saw that leads up to the goal, how they set up, what were they trying to achieve in the opening with a team that maybe weren't quite as expansive as Sheffield United?
Yeah, so we set up with the same shape as Saturday, didn't we? With Mehmeti and Twine kind of playing off the sides of off the centre forward, who was Yeboah. And I think we got off to a really, really fast start. We found some good early space in down the side of the centre backs, and we exploited that. And I guess we got our corner from some bits of pressure, and ultimately scored from that corner as well. So I think we were trying to play the same way, but mainly with the ball. And I think probably Struber said this after the game as well. What you do without the ball is kind of in some ways dependent on what the opposition do. And the opposition, after that kind of initial foray from us, stopped trying to play anything like football out from the back. They might have played from the keeper a couple of times, but the view was get it out into the kind of right or left kind of edge of the box, and then ping long, and that was it. And that kind of rules out in some respects your ability to then press the defenders, because what you're really doing then is you're waiting for the ball to come, and then you're either looking to win the ball and build off of that, or you're looking to win the ball and then pick up the bits and pieces. And we did that fairly well, but the game was probably a little less flowy. Is that a word? After that,
it is now.
It is now.
But yeah, it was fine. You have to adapt to playing against different teams. So yeah, it's very different to Sheffield United.
Mr. P, are you seeing something in the openings of halves, shall we say? Sheffield United's second half, there was a rapid start. Are you seeing any intensity and energy that's different from the last few seasons, shall we say, and how we open halves?
Most definitely, Dave. I mean, Struber talked after the game, and he said it's important. I think they trained to come out quickly. They got the goal, and once you get a goal in front, the opposition have to think about what they're going to do. But it was quick, it was pacey. There's just an energy about what we do. And the thing about MK Dons, they weren't as expansive as Sheffield United maybe tried to be, and they were sitting in deep. But I thought they had some lively players and what have you. But City took the game to them, got the goal, and then realistically there was only going to be one winner after that, because we were in control. But they sat back quite a bit at times, and we always seem to have problems against teams that sit back. So let's see what we do against Charlton, who might play similarly at Ashton Gate on Saturday. Yeah, but our first half performance in that early start was
See,
what we like.
When you talk about teams sitting in and we struggling, it's a tale as old as time. Lots of sides struggle with it. It's why it's so successful, and one of the few things of football that doesn't go away. What I want to ask is, Febs, what do you see in Struber ball that may overcome that, may conquer that with a little bit more ease?
I guess my kind of like fundamental on this is most teams don't just sit back. Okay, there are very few teams that I've seen. We get a lot of people say, "Oh, they parked the bus today," and I'd say we allowed them to park the bus is probably my expression. I think probably the only team I think I've seen come to Ashton Gate last season and literally park the bus was Queen's Park Rangers. Okay. Probably the season before, maybe Swansea, when we had that really, really turgid game that we won for a dicky header. But I think most of it is you allow teams to get back in, and therefore it looks like they've parked the bus and that's their MO. And I think it's more about us allowing them to do that. So I think what we will hopefully see from Struber is less opportunity for them to settle. And, you won't always be able to do that. There'll always be phases of play where you've not been able to get the ball forward quickly because the opposition's done a good job in stopping you doing that. But I think what will happen is when we try and play those kind of clever passes to actually try and inject some pace into it, we might lose it. But what we'll do is we'll win it back quickly. And I guess the kind of perverse bit of that is almost the goal that we conceded on Saturday is probably what I expect to see from a Struber team going the other way. Us, turning over the ball and then the opposition turning it back over to us and us exploiting it. So that's what I hope to see. But, we're 180 minutes really into what Struber brings to us, and I'm sure there'll be lots of nuances to it. But that's my kind of what I'm looking for.
So you can expect you got Struber to be copyrighted pretty soon. Mr. P, after the goal in the first half, were you watching thinking this is a bit of a struggle, or were you thinking this is comfortable? We'll come to the individual performances shortly, but how are you feeling watching that game in the first half?
I just thought we were comfortable. We weren't peppering their goal with shots. In fact, Neil Sutts showed me the stats in the first half and the second half, and we were getting the shots away in the second half, but we were just in control. And look, they weren't a bad side. I think somebody on the text feeds commented here about their number 29. Alan Gwinnell said Hepburn Murphy. He looked a lively player. So the defenders had to be on their mettle. I thought in the first half, Mehmeti didn't feature that much. And I still think in terms of hardness down that left-hand side, by hardness, I mean strength in the tackle, it's not there. We had Zach Viner playing left on the 3. That's not his natural side. So you've got a right-footed player on the left, and essentially in Mehmeti and I would call them lightweight players, but they weren't good enough to exploit that. So whilst the tempo dropped, and we can't keep that up for a whole 90 minutes, whilst the tempo dropped, I never for one moment thought they were going to get back into it. They didn't dominate. They didn't have a busy spell where we were tested. And I think I'm right in saying Lumley didn't have a save to make worthy of the name.
Perhaps something that Mr. P said there about the tempo dropping. Do you think that that's probably where we could be our most vulnerable in future games, when the thing that makes us so effective is dropped slightly? Is there an issue there maybe?
I think it depends on what you do with your structure off of that. If you're having your resting period for example, and you're going to be perhaps going on the back foot for 5 minutes, I think as long as you're structured, I don't think it causes a problem. I think the problem with the way we're going to play is always going to be transition, getting caught pushing too far forward and losing the ball, and the other team doing back to us what we're trying to do to them. I think that will be our biggest weakness this season. But we'll have to wait and see. It's let's say it's really difficult to try and see too many themes here. There's some big high level ones, but I don't think we've got into the detail of what Struber football's really all about here. Is my mic okay as well?
We can hear you fine, Dave.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah.
No problem at all. Okay, interesting. So what I want to talk about now is the runners and riders. Ultimately, we kind of got what we wanted yesterday. A couple of youth team players coming through and making their debuts, or at least starting debuts. We got to learn a few things about different players. The first one I want to talk about is Yeboah. Did he enhance his reputation yesterday, or did he fall slightly in the pecking order? How did you see his performance in the first half yesterday? For Mr. P first.
Okay. Yeboah's got lots of energy. He's bulked up. He's got more physical presence than he had when Pearson gave him that run in the side, admittedly always as a substitute. He was petulant. He was lucky not to get booked by the referee Madeley for one petulant little incident. But you want to see that. And indeed, when Semenyo was around, we all remember one of his early games. That petulance got him a red card in a game. But realistically, I didn't think Yeboah didn't. He was muscled off the ball. Even I just said he's bulked up. He got knocked off the ball too easily, and he didn't stake a claim. I tweeted at half time, none of the 5 that came in, no, that's harsh on Sykes. None of the 5 that came in, or the ones that we wanted to impress, which were Morrison and Yeboah, I don't think either of them did. I mean, we've been crying out for Morrison to play, and I think Morrison suffered through spending the whole of last season sat on the bench rather than going out on loan like Josh Stokes did. Yeah. So, overall, the 2 youngsters, Morrison and Yeboah, they didn't sparkle for me. Sykes did very well, but McCrora is always going to get selected ahead of him. And as I said, I think at the top of the show or before we went live, Lumley, everything about Lumley showed why Struber wanted to get a better quality goalkeeper in. His kicking wasn't great. Somebody's commented on that on the text feed here.
Kevs, what do you make of Yeboah and Morrison? Do you agree with what Mr. P is saying, or do you have a different opinion?
No, unsurprising, no, I don't. And I probably disagree with a lot of fans on Twitter last night, and probably some of the comments in the chat as well. I thought he showed a much more mature game to him than he did when he first came into the side season before. I think he's playing up against a guy who's played a fair chunk of games in the Championship, Marvin Ekpiteta, who actually in the past is someone who I thought, maybe might be someone we look against. They had an experienced player alongside him in Nathan Thompson, and I thought it was exactly the test that you wanted for him. Get him up against an old, as I call him, airy-ass centre half, and see what he does. I thought his movement is so much more improved. The little kind of double movements of coming short and then bending his run around the side. And I thought he gave as good as he got last night against Ekpiteta. Didn't quite come off. A couple of times he could have been put through, and we didn't find the pass to him as well. But I thought it was enough for me to be encouraged by. Was it the greatest performance of all time? No. But there were some good bits and there were some not so good bits. And I'm really surprised that people are kind of down on him. I've seen some comments and he looked like a lost puppy. I thought he looked anything bar looking like a lost puppy. I thought he looked okay last night.
Mr. P, do you think there needs to be a slight adjustment with the fan base, because we've been so desperate for younger players, youth team players to come through, and there's almost this desire for them to do well and hit the ground running, but it's not like that. Do you think a bit more patience is needed and a bit more understanding, or should we keep our high demands and expect?
No, look, I mean, yeah, maybe I was a bit harsh on Yeboah. Robin's Nest said on the text, Yeboah.
Everyone's welcome to know. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. But Robin's Nest said on the text here that Yeboah, out of all the other forwards, bar Reese, is the last one you'd get rid of. I think that's a valid statement. Look, it's right that he came on against lower level opposition, and he'll probably get minutes in the next round of this competition. Yeah, so he's there. We want to see the youngsters, and maybe we've built with Morrison. You didn't give your views particularly on Morrison because
I haven't yet, no.
No, we've had this. We sort of knew what Yeboah was like a little bit because we saw him under Pearson, and then he had those 2 poor loan spells. But Morrison, we were crying out for him to be involved, and therefore there was an expectation that was really only based on seeing him for 20 minutes against Leeds United.
And this is what I wanted to ask, Pebs. Shall we say that Manning was maybe right last season to play him less based on what we saw yesterday? Or are we paying the price for not enough minutes last season? The fact that he's not quite the hype that we thought right now?
Yeah, I don't buy this. They've got to be ready. They've got to be good enough. For me, that's wrong. And I'm really encouraged by some of the things that Struber said around things like when they come in, they have to develop and they have to deliver. But that delivers, kind of almost like delivering on their development, really. They don't have to waste their opportunities. And neither player for me wasted their opportunity last night. They're not going to be ready. That's the whole point of it. You have to nurture them. And I think we've got a head coach who's going to nurture the young players. They might not make it. That's no crime, but you have to give them some opportunities to see whether they can or not. Some of them sink, some of them swim. Sometimes it's the ones you think least are going to make it are the ones that actually do. As for Morrison, I thought Morrison had a really solid solid game last night. I think down the left, he worked hard, got into some good positions, didn't always get the final ball in. He made one absolutely brilliant header in his own six-yard box. Absolutely, which was certain goal if he didn't do it, and you could see afterwards that like Lumley and Viner were kind of like, I can't remember whether they gave him like high fives or a kind of hug or whatever it was, but it was like, yeah, you've just saved us a goal there. And so that was a really good thing. He had a couple of loose touches. There were a couple of times where perhaps the speed of the game was a little bit much. Let's not forget as well that on that right-hand side for MK Dons, okay, he's a bit in and out. They had Jonathan Lecco, who's no mug. He's quick as anything.
Played for us, Dave, didn't he?
He did, yeah, exactly. So, I think MK Dons, they got a reasonable squad there, and they were a good test for us last night, and they were a good test for the two youngsters coming in. And I thought they both did exactly what I kind of hoped they would do. They didn't look out of place, and they kind of did enough to kind of show that they'll be worthy of other chances at other times. Who knows? Next game it might be Knight, LaBelle and Murphy who get the opportunity. Who knows? But I think what we're seeing in literally one game is Struber understands what developing young players is all about, and it's not about him. It's about Bristol City.
So, Mr. P, with regards to Morrison, there's a lot of competition for that left-hand side, even though some consider it to be the weaker area. Do you think Morrison would benefit from a loan, or do you think he's better being in-house because his time will come with injuries? How do you see it? Affects you next, obviously.
You could do it. Wouldn't. I mean, if Pring was here, if Pring was available, I'd say definitely loan him. With the manager seemingly wanting to play you in that position, able to play McCrory in that position, able to play Sykes in that position, and by that I mean pseudo left wing back. I think you could give Morrison a loan with a January recall, a bit like Man United have done with Rajek. And if you went to a decent League One side, I think his game would. Would benefit.
What do you think, Fed? Is that effective, or is not what you want to see from halfway players? Do you think his time is now?
Yeah, I think I at least want to give him some more opportunities before I did that, and that's a really difficult kind of balance to kind of make on that, because you could say, well, we get knocked out in the next round. I guess we still got a couple of days left in the window, and then what do you do? So I think we got some time to see on this. But I think that for me, the way I look at it is you kind of have your senior players, and and I don't count Ross McCrory now as a left wing back, even though he can play. I don't count Mark Sykes. For me, they need to be focusing on rotating with each other on the right hand side, so that neither of them get burnt out. By having to play one of them on the left-hand side, you lessen your options on the other side. And I kind of, it'd be interesting how this plays out with Struber, but he's talked a bit about, not playing square pegs in round holes. So I'm hoping he doesn't play Ross over there when he's got, people like Elijah Morrison to come in. Obviously, when Pring comes back, that balance shifts a little bit, but that's not for a while yet. So why not use Morrison? I think, on Saturday when Morrison went in the squad, you get the usual thing, oh, you don't rate Morrison, Morrison's off. Well, I think the plan was, yeah, you're not going to be involved today, Elijah, but you're going to be involved on Tuesday night, and you're going to start. And that's what I want to hear. But we'll see how it pans out. We're trying to make massive judgments on someone from very little evidence at this point. Yeah, hope it all goes well, Western.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. I've got one more question on these guys, but first a shout out to Western Red. I hope it goes well today, and everything you have to do, just keep pushing through it. And I hope everyone around you gives, well, I know everyone around you gives the support you need. So good luck, Mr. Western Red.
Of course, we got I forgot this. We got the 3 Daves today.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sorry.
One more question on these two. They were both subbed at halftime. Pre-planned, making a statement, the right time to do it, not happy with the performance. What do you see as the reason for making those subs at halftime? That's first.
I guess there's two schools of thought in there. There's one, you play your best team at the start and then you bring your youngsters on at the end once hopefully the game's done and dusted, or you do it the other way around. And I think he's done it the other way around. Whether it was completely pre-planned or not, I don't know. Someone on OTIB this morning said Struber said it was planned. I didn't hear that from the interview, so I don't know if anyone else did. But I'm quite happy that, you've had 45 minutes. I'm also trying to get cohesion with the other players. They've only had 90 minutes together in a league game. I want to see another 20 minutes of Emil Reese with Anis Mehmeti and Scott Twine. So there's lots of factors and dynamics at play here. And I think he just did it probably the opposite way around to what a lot of managers do. I don't think it was, you've not done very well, boys. I think it was, yeah, you've done exactly what I've asked for, and now I need to get other players some minutes as well.
Mr. P, Febs said something interesting about giving Reese more game time and cohesion. When Reese came on at halftime, were you thinking that similar, or were you thinking like, this is our best striker, we don't want him in this game? How do you feel about Reese at halftime?
I mean, look, he made a very positive impact on the game when he came on. But you're looking at him. I mean, he's quite a chunky guy. Do you know what I mean? He's a good signing. Whatever we say about recruitment, signing him is a good one. And you look at it and you think, he didn't play with a big man up front in the first half. Could there have been? And again, I'm not a fan. Could he have brought Sam Bell on and played him down the middle? Yeah, maybe. You for Morrison, yeah, I sort of get that because Yu's learning that position. It was. I mean, could Armstrong have come on? I might not have given Reese the minutes necessarily, because as you say, if he, as people have said, if Reese gets injured, our paucity of talent up front, we've got the quantity, but the quantity is lacking. The quality is lacking big time. Yeah, so it's a risk, but he knows what he's doing. In Struber, we trust.
This is the way. So moving on to the second half. Feds, what did you see before the U goal? How did we get there from halftime? Were there any tactical tweaks? Did you see anything different in MK Dons, or was it just a case of as you were, the same players but of a higher quality?
Yeah, I think MK probably they made a little adjustment in the first half where they ended up moving their left centre back a little bit narrower, and that was a reaction actually to, I think, Yeboah calls in Ekpateta some problems running into the channel, so they closed that channel off. But no, I don't think we did anything different. We probably just we probably had a little bit of tempo coming out the block second half, and I think we executed a bit cleaner as well. I think what I liked yesterday was the number of times we got in behind them in those kind of really tight areas, just inside the lines of the penalty area. And the second goal came from that, didn't it? Twine got a little ball rolled into him in a good space. He turned his man, chipped it to the back post, and you scored. And we, Sykes got into a couple of those positions. Knight got into one. There were plenty of occasions where you think actually we've got into that area to cut back. I think Sinclair Armstrong probably had about 3 chances, but he didn't quite get the runners and the movement across him to find them, and ended up having to probably shoot from difficult angles. But I kind of see that less about Armstrong being like a terrible finisher, and maybe more he just didn't have the options to cross the ball, so he's gone for a goal. And I don't blame him for that. He's probably desperate for a goal as well, and that might be affecting his decision making. But I guess we did make a slight change to system with the later subs when we actually went to a proper front two and went to a kind of 3-4-1-2 with Stokes playing in behind. Although even then he played a little bit more off the left hand side, but it was definitely Armstrong and Reese up front.
We will come to the front two very, very shortly.
Sorry, breaking your agenda.
No. You are allowed to skip. There's no problem. Mr. P, not so much the U element of the goal, but another Twine assist. That's 2 goals, 3 assists in 2 games. In the first game, making more tackles than anybody else on the pitch, I believe. Yeah. Are we seeing a new Scott Twine, a new energized one? Will we look back future in the season and say that Manning was maybe a handcuff for Twine, and this refreshed version is what we wanted the whole time? What have you made of Twine so far?
Well, again, in the same way that I'd eat humble pie over Andy Vyman a few seasons ago, Twine's come in. It is like he's a different player. Now, you could argue that the whole time he'd been here, prior to having the close season, he'd maybe had some injury problems and what have you. You've got to look at him in the context of Manning and his style of football. So even though he was a player that Manning coveted, I think you're right to use the term handcuff, but he's doing okay. He was, I think, who was it? AB said no handbrake. He's playing without a handbrake, and that's what I like. We're going to surrender possession. And I'll talk about this player later on. There's one player that I think looked to be in the Manning way, and 3 times Neil Sutton was sat next to me. He said 3 times Struber said, "Get the ball forward." Right. But getting back to Twine to answer the question, yes, 2 goals, 2 assists. What's not to like about that? And the goal, I mean, you pulled the trigger. That was a cracking. It was a cracking strike, and it was good to see him. I think that's his first goal at Ashton Gate, isn't it? Is that right, Dave? First goal at Ashton Gate?
Yeah, that's what I believe.
I think so. Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they said yesterday. So I believe it's true.
Good to score it. So 2-0. That is it. Game over. With still half an hour to play. A bit like on Saturday. I mean, Sheffield. We're never going to come back from 4-1 down with 45 minutes to go, or 35 minutes to go. So
and from there, something interesting happened. 62-minute subs. Armstrong and Stokes come on for Twine and Mehmeti, and we saw the tactical tweak we've all been waiting for. 2 up front.
Yeah.
What's a magical mystery? Now, my question for you, Febs, is that something you expect to see more of going forward? Was it to try it out, or is it very much a plan actual B being put to work to see and test what works and what doesn't?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll become the default or anything like that, but I think it becomes an option. And yeah, I think it's good to see that there's that slight bit of variation over there. Again, it kind of keeps the main 8 players in the centre of the pitch. So yeah, I kind of think it fits into kind of the way Struber wants to do things. I just want to go back and talk about Twine as well. Probably a couple of things. I think AB makes a great point. He lets Twine run in behind. That's everything Scott Twine did, pretty much last season was in front of the defence. And I think you let him run beyond as well. We saw it in the Valladolid game, and I know I've just pronounced that badly, Dave, but I can't be honest.
You did well.
We saw it there. The goal that he laid back for McCrory was a run he's made towards the 6-yard box, and we didn't see any of that under Manning. And I think that going back to your really really earlier question about how do we break teams, that's how we do it, by getting runners from deep in behind. And that's why Andy Vyman scored all those goals in whatever season it was, by making those kind of third man runs past the centre.
What is it though? Because it's not pace. Is it intelligence? Is it understanding the game position? How does he do it? How is he so effective in getting in behind?
Timing is another one, but I think the most important thing, and we saw that with Reese probably in that friendly as well, was the actual expectancy that the pass might come.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many times we did it yesterday, probably about 3, where that ball gets knocked slightly behind the central midfielder, and then he whips up. People who are watching on Spotify or whatever won't be able to see what I've just done there, but they like kind of whip that ball into the channel, and the striker's already making a move. But if that ball doesn't come, you stop making those runs.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So I think what we're seeing is, because they're being told to play forward, they're actually looking to run forward as well, and it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Not sure what the question was now, but that.
No. You answered enough things there perfectly. So moving forward slightly, just Stokes, the future king, shall we say, at some point, has a rasping shot from outside the box and hits the bar. What did you think of his overall contribution to the game, Mr. P? How did you see him in that position as a lone 10?
I mean, I want to see more of him. I mean, clearly he was well rated by Cambridge. Since we talk about Cambridge, what about the Gas? Marvellous start to the season for them. So I want to see more of Stokes. I think, if you say to Twine, go out and play hard for 70 minutes, you can bring Stokes on. He reminds me quite a lot of George Earthy, and I'm convinced that when we signed Earthy on loan from West Ham last year, we thought the Twine deal had gone. So he's a decent footballer. I think he's a cross between Earthy and Alex Scott. He can pick a pass. He's physically got all the attributes, in my view. And if that goal had gone in rather than rattling against the bar, he'd have been getting all the praises today, even though it was the 3rd goal and the game had already been won by then. So I want to see more of him. Yeah. Interestingly, AB said on the thread there, Stokes will replace Anis if he moves. Yeah, because you wouldn't say Anis is a pacey winger. Anis does not run down the line in the way that Dave Smith, those of you that can remember the 89-90 promotion season, Dave Smith was one of those wingers that runs like a hare. That's not Anis. And Anis isn't really playing as a winger, is he? I don't know. But no, I was impressed with Stokes in the minutes that he had on the pitch.
What did you make of Stokes? Did you learn anything new yesterday? Did he impress you? Did he enhance his reputation in his appearance?
I think, I watched a couple of games last pre-season, and I thought he looked a little bit lost. That's far too strong, but it looked like he was finding his feet at, this level. I thought last night he came in and just looked like one of the squad, which was that's a pretty decent compliment. Great shot that hit the bar. He was neat and tidy in everything he did. He linked well with you. As I say, he kind of played a little bit as a bit of a left 10, if that made sense. I don't think it was a kind of very kind of like default 3-4-1-2 with the 10 behind. It kind of was a little bit lopsided or whatever. But yeah, it was more two up front and a kind of withdrawn player, kind of centre left, and that's where he played. And I thought he did nicely. Just what you want. Another tick, a box ticked, I think.
Another box ticked, exactly. So 75th minute, Bird for Randle. I'll come for a conversation about those two specifically later, but how did you rate Randle's 75 minutes? How have you seen him in the two games so far? An addition, slightly behind the pecking order with Bird. How do you rate the competition in general in terms of Randle's play? Mr. P?
I thought he did okay. Look, he got caught in possession for the Sheffield goal of the weekend, but he's tidy. He runs, I said, him and Knight, they're busy bees. So he's a tidy player. I think when you look at, it's just my view, but if you look at Knight and Randle, that's what they are. They're busy, energetic little players. I think if you put Bird in there, you're getting something different. I think if you put Williams in there, you're getting that same level of bites, maybe not the pace, but I think Knight and Williams are a more battling midfield duo than Knight and Bird, if you're looking at a two. So Max came on, he's a cultured player, yeah. And you could play Knight and Randle. You could play Bird in place of Mehmeti.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So, Febs, you're kind of in my camp of seeing Bird's best position as a deep-lying playmaker. Do you still think he's most effective there under the Struber Chaos philosophy, or do you think he would be better off further forward?
Yeah, I think so. But we'll judge when we see him play in those positions. I think Randle's done exactly what I thought he'd do. I'm a big fan of him. Watched him for a few years now at Plymouth, and he's always been one of those players I look for. I think he's combative. I think he uses the ball simply. I think he's just finding his feet a little bit with Bristol City. It's a step up for him from Plymouth. But I've been quite impressed by him in the two games so far. I know people are saying, he lost the ball for the goal on Saturday, but that's going to happen to every player this season. At some point, they're going to be the start of the fault for a goal, and we just have to get used to it. But I think he gives us plenty in there, and he allows Jason Knight to play a little bit more advanced and get around the box. And Knight's a bit kind of maligned, isn't he, for his kind of creative, but some of those little passes he makes into the box, like last night and on Saturday as well, we're starting to see that he's got a bit of that in his locker. He's not going to hit Glenn Hoddle type passes, but he can make a little slide rule ball down the side for someone to run onto, like Sykes or Armstrong or whatever. So yeah, I think we get to see a little bit of that, and Randle's more the one who'll probably play and sit back a little bit, but they'll take it in turns. In essence, that's probably me kind of contradicting myself a bit. I think they make a good pair in a Struber style of football. I think it's up for Bird to come in and bring his more silky passing, his ability to break lines, but he'll also have to run around a lot as well and provide energy, which is probably the bit which I'd say he didn't. And I think last year, although he had some good games, I want him to influence games more. I want to see him get on the ball, where sometimes I think he let games just go kind of past him a bit. So yeah, that's what I want him to do.
Yeah. I think he's going to be the most interesting player of that midfield competition, and exactly where is he best suited, because there's a lot of competition in different places and also a lot of different requirements. Moving on, and to paraphrase somebody that may or may not be on this podcast, yesterday we had another one of the Yin Yang situations. We're pushing for a third. We're 2-0 up. We're pushing for a third goal. Everybody enjoys it, saying this is refreshing. This is wonderful. We did it against Sheffield United. We did it yesterday. Eventually, the Yang is going to come and we're going to concede from pushing for a goal, and it's going to cost us. Which poison do you prefer? Going to kill a game or trying to sit in and conceding anyway? For you, Febs, first of all, which mentality to end the game do you prefer?
I'm probably mixed. I think there's too many, my get out clause. There's too many scenarios there to understand. I think historically I've probably been one. Let's not give anything away. But I can see the advantage of the merciless moments and killing them too. So.
But are you going to be saying they need to be more streetwise? In a couple of games' time, we concede a goal in the 88th minute. Are you going to be saying we're not streetwise enough, or are you going to buy into this fully?
It depends on how it comes about, doesn't it? Is it really like gung ho and stupidity, or is it okay, we've got a bit caught there. Goals are going to come against us in all shapes and sizes, and we need to they'll come in different minutes of games as well. We'll have to see. I don't know. I'll be disappointed if we throw games away, but there might be games where we're drawing or losing and we snatch something as well. So you've got to take the rough with the smooth, I think.
Mr. P, thoughts? How do you want to see it?
2-0 is a dangerous 2-0 is a dangerous scoreline, because you can be in control of the game, and then with 10 minutes to go, it's 2-1, and then the opposition know that they've got to. They're going to put you under a lot of pressure, and then you panic. I mean, we weathered whatever storm Sheffield threw at us at the weekend, but it wasn't a massive storm. It's nice to go for it because it's good for the goal difference. The goal difference can be worth an extra point when it comes to the business end of the season. But last night it could have been 3-0 if Stokes' shot had gone in. That's my view.
Fabs?
Yeah, I was just going to say, going back to your question, if we think about Saturday, scored first, they equalised, they had a spell when they were on top and we defended well. What did we do? We stuck to our principles, didn't we? And, we then scored, what could be one of the goals of the season with the one that McCrory scored. So I think there's some early kind of faith to get behind there, saying it's probably the right way to do it.
I think you see in the comments, it's like sense chaos, be merciless is better than control. And I agree with this, but I just want to remind everyone to stay the course because it's going to happen. We're going to concede.
You're Mr. Chaos. I'm still trying to get towards it, Dave.
You're coming. Now, moving on to...
I just say there's a bandwagon to jump on, but I just want to make sure I jump on the right one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I say that I was never off the bandwagon, so you're all welcome to join me at any point. Chaos is the way.
There was a quote I think in the past was like, "Don't everyone jump on the bandwagon? Who's going to lead the next parade?" And I feel a little bit like that.
This is true, Mr. P. Armstrong. He's developed a selfish streak, and at the moment he's getting a bit of criticism for it, for not necessarily looking at other options. Is this the Armstrong you want to see? Is this a positive in the long run? He needs to work on his finishing, but do you want to see someone that is goal-focused in Armstrong? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess you do. As I said, I thought he did okay last night. He looked up for it. I mean, there have been games when he's come on and he's been on about 3 minutes and he looks like he's played 70. Yeah, so I think he's a confidence player. Selfish, nothing wrong in being selfish. If it's going to help him with his confidence, might not endear him to his teammates, because I think he could have set up Sam Bell for a simple chance, which would have made the win at Bramall Lane even more emphatic. So, no, I mean, he's look, I mean, Mayulu and Cornick do not have a future at Bristol City. So, and if you looked at that trio, Mayulu, Cornick, Bell, all right, let's throw Armstrong in there. Armstrong's the one that I'd want to see given a chance, because I think Sam's had his, and the other two, they're in the departure lounge, metaphorically.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So moving on slightly, and Mr. P, you first. Jason Knight playing 90 minutes in the first round of the Carabao Cup, or our first round anyway. How do you feel about that? This is a guy that plays and plays and plays and plays. Should we be looking to rest over time, or are we just going to play him forever? If ever there was a chance to give some rest, wasn't it yesterday?
Feds.
Feds, you first.
Oh,
I said Mr. P, but yeah.
No, it doesn't worry me. I'm sure Jason Knight's kind of big enough and ugly enough to tell Gerhard Struber if he, feels he needs a rest. Played every minute last season of the league, went off on international duty, did get subbed off twice in the cups last year. So yeah, no, I think he's integral to what Struber's trying to do, and kind of he'll play him as much as he can to kind of keep that. It's his captain, isn't he? He wants him on the pitch. He's his leader. He's his guy who sets the behaviours. And I think I saw someone tweet something last night that Jason Knight played that game as if it was his last game ever. He was charging around, he was getting in tackles and things like that, which is just shows that for me what a top pro he is.
Interesting. Okay, Mr. P, I'll move it on because I think Fed summed it up well. Somebody who's had a fantastic start to the season is Zach Viner. What did you make of his performance yesterday?
Well, considering he was playing on the left, which isn't his natural side, I thought he did what Zach Viner does. He was okay. Yeah, some people think he ball watches a bit. Some people think he lost. Is it Tyrese Campbell for their goal? Never mind the fact that Randle was caught in possession. So Zach did all right. I mean, the point that I was chatting with Neil Sutton last night was, and the player we were referring to, because I thought Dickie had a good game last night, and has Dickie done enough to make Struber think about a team for Charlton? And I got criticised on X for saying so. George Tanner is the player that I was saying a lot of the time looked to check back and go inside. And Sutz was in my ear most of the evening saying, look at that. Tanner did some good passes, but, I would not want to see a Tanner, Dickie, Atkinson back three, no matter how good that is. I'd always have Viner in there, but on the right-hand side, yeah? And you could go on Saturday, be harsh, but you could go Viner, Dickie, Atkinson and put George on the bench. That's the only thing that Struber might be thinking of, because Dickie was all Dickie. He was involved. He was tumbling over. He's one of your best players. And at what point do you bring him back? Do you bring him in when one of the defenders makes a mistake, or do you say Rob Dickie is my player that is in my starting 11 if available?
Well, I think Viner's had a fantastic start to this season. It's almost like an enthused version of him. There's a confidence and aura about him. Fed, who would you start as the back three versus Charlton? Because Tanner has been amazing. Does Dickie just come back because he's a leader? How do you see it?
No, first of all, I want to have a moan at Bristol City FM because he said Zach was literally perfect. I'm sure he's plagiarised that off one of my tweets from last night. So shame on you for copying. But I thought Viner, he was near perfect last night. He was absolutely brilliant. And I think as well, let's not forget he was trying to coax Morrison through as well. So, and he himself had, a tough opponent in, Lecco. Scott Hogan, okay, he's not the Scott Hogan who probably had the best movement I've seen in the Championship, 5 years ago. But he's still a handful. He's still an annoying little shit, And so I thought Viner, I can't remember him doing anything wrong last night. He was just absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, going to your question in terms of, I think ultimately, and God, Dave, I said you'd catch me out. I don't do best 11s. Maybe I'll do a best back. Maybe I'll do a best back three. I think with the players that are now fit with Dickie return, I think at some point he'll go Viner, Dickie, Atkinson, and Tanner will be the one to drop out. But I don't see that happening just yet. I think it'll be Rob, you need to prove yourself. You know, he maybe gets the next game in the cup, or you know, as happened last season when Dickie was suspended and came back. Unfortunately, someone else got injured, and that was the reason why he gets back in. And that, you know, that's football, and that's why it's a squad game. Just to kind of bring myself back to my mantra before you think I'm being a hypocrite. So yeah, and then then we get hopefully at Christmas Luke McNally, and then we're trying to perm 5 into 3, stroke 6 into 3.
Yeah,
so yeah,
it's healthy competition. Okay, so final question of the day for both of you. Do you anticipate any changes from Sheffield United to Charlton's starting 11? Do you see any changes? Would you change a winning side? Do you want to see it refreshed? What are your feelings going forward for the Charlton game? Mr. P, you first.
Yeah, I think I already alluded to one change, which it'd be harsh, but it is just that
very harsh.
It is Dickie coming in for Dickie coming in, not for Viner, Dickie coming in for Tanner.
Even though he had his best game in one of his best games I can remember, you would still sub him. You would still not start him.
It's harsh, isn't it? The other question. Yeah, I mean, well, in answer to the question, probably he'll stick with the same starting lineup, and that means the starting lineup at Bramall Lane, not the finishing lineup, which obviously is a little bit different. So as you were. And then I would expect Dickie to come on. He could come on for any. I mean, look, the key thing with Viner, and look, Viner's always available to play. Somebody, I think it was Bristol City FM, saying FFS when I said he was all right and rather than perfect. Viner was playing on the wrong side for him. But what are we going to do if Derby come in the next 2 weeks and say, well, we offered you $1 million. Yeah, it was a bit derisory. We'll give you $1.5 million. Would he go? Because he can. And we all know that he is, I think, well, we all know he's one of the highest earners at the club. Now, Struber was very emphatic when the Radio Bristol reporter ran past him about McCrory being linked with Udinese, and he did a touch of the Aiden Flint with a no. I think it was
never.
Never. Yeah, no, never. So would Viner go? And he is liked by Struber. Struber has said that. He likes Viner.
Okay, so Feds, to wrap up, Feds, first of all, would you expect any changes? And Ari, Mr. P's points, would you take the money at that price bracket, $1.5 million to finish the day?
First one, no, I don't expect any changes from Sheffield United. I'm sure it'll be exactly the same side. I think the whole reason for doing what he did last night was to, be able to keep the same side for Saturday. That's my view. It might have a trick up his sleeve. In terms of Zach Viner, if we as a club are going to start accepting 1.5 million bids from Derby County, we might as well pack up and go home. It's the same, then we so undervalue our players. I remember last week people saying, "Oh, Bametis, if we got a bid of $1 million for him, what? These are our better players. These are our first team regulars, and we're letting them go for that. And then no one thinks how much it might cost to replace them. And I'll use my Harry Darling quote here. I don't know whether Rob Atkinson was going to go in the summer. But my view is Rob Atkinson's a far better all-round footballer. He's by far a better defender than Harry Darling. And Harry Darling might have been on a free transfer. I don't think we'd have got much for Rob Atkinson off the back of his long injury in the summer. Now he's tied down to a contract and playing. His value's going to shoot back up to sensible amounts. But Harry Darling would have probably commanded twice, if not more, the wage of Rob Atkinson. And I just think, what's the point? These are our better players. We need to keep them. The biggest thing we need to improve, and I bleat on about this on O2, we need to sort out our contract renewal strategy. It's shit. We allow players to get too near the end of their contracts before we start discussing. And therefore we change the balance of power. And my kind of mantra on this is we need to renew regularly. We need to build goodwill with them and their agents because we want to keep them. so that when we sell them at an advantageous moment for us and an advantageous moment in terms of the price we can get for it. I look at Watford, and we slag them off in the Pozzo family, but they've just got something like about 7 million for 3 players who aren't first team starters. They managed to shift their squad players, let alone their best players. We need to have a good look at ourselves with this. And I know we've had, it's not quite as simple as that, because we've had a manager change, and that might have influenced things like Mehmeti, it might have influenced Viner. But I do hope to God that those 2 players have seen what could be happening under Struber, and I hope that the club also see it's far cheaper to pay Zach Viner X thousand more a week than it is to replace him. And so that's my kind of final shout.
So that wraps up today's pod. Thank you for everybody that watched live. For those that don't, thank you very much for watching later on in the week. This weekend is Charlton at home, so we, in principle, all things being well, we'll see you Sunday morning, 9 a.m. And thank you for watching. Thank you to Febs for your hybrid role, and thank you to Mr. P for letting me host.
Oh,
Ciao
my
for now.
pleasure.